Hello and welcome to my Woolly PhD, episode number 61. My name's Liz Scarf. This is a weekly vlog about what I'm currently thinking about and making in my anthropology PhD, all about wool. I'm at that point in the research, I'm like, is it all about wool? It started all about wool, who knows where it's going. So I've had a couple of weeks off the videos while I travel back home from my last field trip, and yeah, sort of coming back to the land of the living and the not jet lagged. There has been some thinking going on, and I've been thinking a lot about multi-species kinship. So let's start with kinship generally. Like, it's not actually it's kind of a common language word, and it's not. So kinship is basically culturally recognised social bonds, and traditionally those bonds might be based on descent, so who are your parents' parents, and also sometimes on marriage. And then also there's like other social functions that might sort of recognise kinship bonds, and these might be godparents are one example. But that also different cultures have different ways of using kinship strategically and making other people kin for particular reasons. Like some people, people who aren't kin can't relate with you in certain ways. So sometimes you might make them kin so that now it's allowable. Well, this happens in some cultures, and yeah, so kinship is not as fixed as we've always, or do we think it's fixed? I don't know. It's a really interesting concept, and traditionally anthropology has focused on it a lot because it's the primary organising category for most of life, so like for economic life, social life, political life, in many cultures. So it determines inheritance, land access and land rights, obligations, political alliances, who you can and can't marry, therefore, reproduction, and, so there's it dictates a lot in a lot of cultures. And I think it's easy to think in sort of contemporary Western life, kinship has become less relevant as a concept. I think it's become more relevant. It's just become, the ways in which it's really diverse have become more obvious, and different generations kind of evolve new ways of thinking about kinship, of making kin. So I think it's a super interesting concept, also complex, right? We can also say it's a total Western projection on other cultures. It's not how they're thinking about themselves. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things I'm particularly interested in, though, and some anthropologists, there's a bit of work in this, is thinking about kinship in broader terms and extending the idea to interspecies or multi-species kinship practices and beliefs, right? So the way that we make kin, that we create recognised social bonds with other animals and plants and bacteria and basically other species. So this is whether it's like multi-species kinship. So the way in which we make or break or negotiate, navigate kinship with non-humans. So one kind of really obvious example, right, is domestic pets that we consider part of the family. Domestication can be in one way can be understood as a kinship making process, the bringing of non-humans into the habitus, the home space, the consideration of them as family members, the way we love them, the way we grieve them, the way we socialise them into our lives, the way they love and grieve and socialise us into their lives as well. Humans have been making kin with non-humans for a really long time. It's not new. And the other thing that I guess is happening in multi-species anthropology is thinking even more broadly than just sort of domestic or agricultural animals. They're the kind of obvious low-hanging fruit of what's multi-species kinship or sites of examination. We can also look at bacteria, viral pathogens, a whole range of different microbial worlds that are also ways in which we enact care, are cared for, understand kin and sense of place. So gets bigger and bigger as a concept, right? It makes me, oh yeah. What am I going to say next? Okay, there's one book I really want to recommend, right? It's called When Species Meet. And this is by Donna Haraway, she's a feminist philosopher, particularly in the sort of science and technology studies area. And she was one of the sort of early writers to really invigorate the current interest in multi-species work. And she brought in some ideas that have created like a really useful and legitimate sort of framework for many disciplines to engage with this. Anthropology has sort of taken parts of that in certain directions. I think it's a super, super important and interesting book in this area. There's a lot of great ideas and concepts that Haraway explores in the book, but a couple that really grabbed me, right? The first is this notion of becoming with. So one of the things that anthropology and probably a few other disciplines are interested in, right, is the process of becoming. How a human becomes who they are, how a culture becomes what it is, how it does things. And this process of development, I don't mean development it's not the best word to use, process of becoming, right? And she really kind of argues that organisms do not pre-exist their relationships. Like if you're not in relationship, you don't exist kind of thing, right? That is that we all become who we are, humans and other organisms, through our contact with each other, with other species. And that we become with each other. You don't become who you are in isolation. I've always felt this personally, that I only kind of really exist in relationship, but I never really had much of a framework to think about that well. But I mean, even if you feel like I don't have many friends or whatever else, right? It's like just the bacteria within the body is like, we exist with other species and other organisms, even just with our own gut biome and the bacteria and other parts of our body that are essential for functioning. We have to become with them, right? Our moods, our cognitive capacity, our mobility, our capacity for digestion, like so many things are predicated on the well-being of those bacterial colonies and the diversity of them and the balances and like so much of how we're living our life is dependent on those bacteria, right? And how we experience ourselves and perceive the world. So it's like we become together with the bacterial colonies. Hopefully we've got more organisms that we're becoming with too, right? It's your microbiome won't make you feel less lonely. It's a bit of a tangent, but this makes me think about the animals that I am with in my field work. And if you've been watching along for a while, you know I spend time with chickens, I spend time with pigs, I spend time with sheep, I spend time with cows, cattle, not dairy, meat cattle, not dairy cattle, cows. Is that it? I think so. Oh, there's a dog. It's a really lovely dog. There's some cats, but I avoid the cats because I'm allergic to cats. And of course, there's all the soil microbes that I spend time with as well. I don't think about them as much. I'm a little more interested in the mammals, I have to say. But it does make me think about how our interactions are shaping each other and how they're also very time related. Like the more time we spend together, obviously the more we are shaped. Well, maybe it's not so obvious, but the more we're shaped by each other, right? And so it makes me question, like, who do I become with? With the chickens, with the pigs, with the cows, with the sheep, and how are we both sort of shaped and changed and grown from our togetherness and the various sort of things that happen, the way each of us turn up into that togetherness. When I think about sort of different sheep interactions I've had, right? It's like I think a lot of prey animals particularly, they're often kind of negotiating internally a drive to be sort of wary and withdraw, and a curiosity and an interest in a human, right? And so the ways in which different animals are negotiating that, the way in which I'm behaving less like a predator or more like a predator, impacts how they, you know, approach or don't approach, and the social interactions that we can have, how we get to know each other. You know, oh, we know what each other smell like, or, you know, the different sounds of our voices, and, oh, you like to be scratched, oh, you don't. Like, different tolerances for touch. I often thought it was always like a one-way thing, that, you know, sheep had a certain tolerance for touch, until I had sheep who were trying to really like lick my face and snuffle on my mouth and my ears and things like that, and just going, yeah, I also kind of actually don't want you snuffling on my lips. That just sounds germy and dangerous. Or it was really interesting seeing reluctance on my side, and you know, it's really, it comes a lot to sort of the second point I want to make from this book, which I'll get to in a moment though, but is about what we project onto animals and what we think that they, or other species, right, what we think their subjective experience is versus our own. But when I'm thinking about this becoming with, one of the things that sort of stands out to me is the power to give somebody else a good life, and the rewards that come from, not just the rewards, but the way it shapes you when you're using that power well, right? So this is so relevant when you caretake animals. So when I think about the pigs particularly, right, that I was taking care of, they were really happy, playful animals. And I think pigs are intrinsically quite playful, curious, smart animals, from my understanding. But like most species, they need to have the right context, a safe enough context, right, to allow their nature to unfold. They have to have the opportunities spatially, in terms of safety and in terms of nutrition, right, to be themselves. And learning how to kind of cultivate that context. I mean, you can read in books and you can learn from other people who know, but you also have to spend time and observe, right? Oh, what makes you, what allows you to be more pig-like, to be more yourself? What stops you? What means you have more things that you can do and explore? What limits your world? You know, what could I do that they could sort of be and could keep being playful and be themselves and be curious and exploring? And, you know, they were given fresh pastures to explore on a regular basis. We were kind to them. We were interested in them. We spent time getting to know them and being known by them. And of course, we fed them. I'd say it's all these different ways of creating of opportunities for animals to be themselves with you, that also shape you. Like, it was such a joy. And that experience has shaped me in ways that I probably don't really understand yet. Because all of those things also meant that there were certain social opportunities that the pigs and I had that neither of us had had before, around getting to know each other and different experiences of different kinds of pig-human touch, different noises, different smells, different games, different ways to be playful. Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to describe something a bit indescribable, although it's just not fully known to me yet. Anyway, this is definitely a huge passion area for me, is this multi-species thing. It's definitely going to be a big feature of the PhD, I think. So I've got a lot more reading and thinking and reflecting to do on this. You know, another concept from this book that I thought was really good, from Haraway. It's where she plays with the sort of the etymological link between response and responsibility. You know, she sort of argues that we have an ethical obligation to go beyond our own projections onto other species and actually learn how to notice and respond to their cues. Like, what does it mean when you do this? Ah, okay, it means this. Not, oh, you're doing this. I know what that means because that's how, that I just make assumptions about what that means, right? And when I think about farmers, this is one of the things I think can really make or break a good farmer, or splits a good farmer from not good farmer, right? Is the core skill of observation and curiosity that goes along with that, rather than assumption that, you're doing this thing I've never seen before, it just means this. Rather than going, you're doing this thing before, I've got a hypothesis or a theory that it might mean this. How am I going to test that and check what does it actually mean? This ability to kind of notice subtle changes in movement and sounds and smell and appearance and behaviour in animals, it seems to be crucial to, of course, to how we support the well-being of animals. I remember during lambing this last year in Iceland, so a mother in one of the lambing pens, she stamped her foot as we walked past. And I said to the farmer, does that mean she's like grumpy at us for being here? And the farmer, she says, yes, but she's always grumpy. Now, as someone inexperienced with sheep, I had guessed at grumpy because I've seen humans do the same thing, right? Especially young humans. This is an interpretation of a sheep behaviour through a human category, right? It has to be checked. It's not a bad place to start, but if it's where we stop and we just assume it's what it means, then it's a problem. But we can use it as a starting hypothesis, right? So I used it as a starting hypothesis and then checked with somebody who's spent a lot of time with sheep and with this sheep, and so she has many more points of reference to determine what does that foot stamp actually mean. Now, when you think about it, right, lots of animals stamp their feet when they're grumpy. Maybe it's like a warning move or a posturing threat. I've seen cows do it, I've seen horses do it. I'm guessing goats probably do it. And maybe my guess wasn't just based on tantruming human children, right? But you get the point. There's still this thing of, if you got a hypothesis, great, but then you got to test it. And that's partly how we stop ourselves projecting onto animals and just get curious and explore and test different ideas about how to work out what does this actually mean. Dogs and cats don't stamp do they stamp their feet when they're grumpy? Maybe it's more of a hooved animals thing, right? Because they can fight with their hooves. I don't know why do humans do it? Guess we can kick. Anyway, if you have any insights on that, stamping of feet, I mean, it's pretty cute. It's pretty cute when it's a smaller animal. When it's a larger animal, I must admit, I have had cows stamp their feet at me. It's a little more threatening than a sheep for sure. It's still kind of entertaining. Both of these make me think about time though as well, right? Like how much time we spend together and what we do with that time. Like the degree to which the relational exchanges are controlling or collaborative, who is centered in our interactions, whose subjectivity, whose perception is centered in our interactions, like what are the goals that each of us have or that maybe we share or don't share, and how all of these shape sort of the ethic that we enact in our interactions. It's super interesting anthropologically, and that also it requires time. Yeah, it's interesting. I think this is one of the things with multi-species anthropology and multi-species kinship, is it really offers a lot of provocation to unlearn so many Western assumptions about animals and animal subjectivity and humans' position relative to animals, which has generally been one of extreme domination, right? So when I think about time, I think it can be so easy if we don't really think of animals as individual subjects to forget that actually good relationships are built over time. Not just because you're comfortable with this human means you're going to be comfortable with that human as well, right? Like there's individual preferences and personalities at play here. I have to think on this one more. When I also think bringing these ideas into the concept of kin making, it also makes me reflect on my human-human kinship relationships and the ethics that I bring to those, right? So thinking about what kind of works across multiple species and what doesn't. So what ways of being together are essential for good relations, or what opportunities emerge or don't, right? So, and even in non-kin relations, like one example, right, is perspective or subjectivity, right? If I think that my perspective, my subjectivity is the most important one in a relationship, this creates problems, right? It creates problems with acquaintances, it creates problems with human kin, and it creates problems with non-human kin. But it's generally how we relate to animals, right? So Western cultural ways of dominating over animals, basically, and narratives that they don't think, they don't feel, they don't have individual identity or personalities. Obviously, this has changed a lot over many hundreds of years. It's still very prevalent, particularly the larger the group of animal that you have, right? Like, so larger scale farming, there's less sense of an individual animal and individual animal subjectivities. But this ethic of recognising the subjectivity of the other, that they might have different opinions or ways of seeing the world, this seems relevant across all species, like all of our relations with different species and what makes good kinship. It's kind of one of these goals of anthropology, right, is to learn from each other about how to live well in this world. And this is a debatable goal. I'm not saying every anthropologist thinks this. I'm not even saying I necessarily think it, but some people say this is one of the goals of anthropology. It's not unreasonable. I don't not think it. I just don't have a firm opinion on this yet. But I think a focus on multi-species relations is so important, because it's not just domestic and agricultural animals we're in a relationship. Like I was saying before, right? The bacteria, viruses, plants, wild animals, we have more non-human relations than we do human relations that all sort of work to become with, like as a world and as our own sort of life worlds too. And I just think they're so illustrative, right? What do I mean by that? Like exploring them opens up a lot of ideas for thinking about human-human relationships as well as multi-species ones, and I think that's really useful as a thinking tool as well. Anyway, so that's what I've been thinking about this past week. What have I been making? Oh my God. I feel like, well, if you hadn't already worked it out from either doing your own PhD or from following along here, doing a PhD means you have less time for other things like knitting, but because I've had a little bit of a break as I've been travelling and recovering from travel, I have got lots more making done, and I am so excited. You've been around for a while. You have been with me for the Berkey cardigan palaver. I'm not quite finished, but I'm nearly there. This is not going to be a great view. That's the inside, obviously. But I have finished the body. I've finished the sleeves. The sleeve endings are a little bit different, but I'm probably going to keep them like that. We'll see. I might pull them back. They're a tiny little bit shorter than I thought. I wanted them bracelet length. I think they're a little bit shorter. I'm going to block it and see if I get some extra length from it, and then if I don't, then I'll think about, I could just pull them back, add a bit more on, redo it. This doesn't take very long. But anyway, so I did cut out a hunk of the yoke that was way too big. I think I cut out about this much. But yeah, I steeped it the other night, and yeah, so the collar's on, the bottom band is on, and the first button band side is on. It does look a little puckered, I know, but that's going to come out in blocking. And I'm just going to pick up for this side and do the button band there, and I've still got to work out where am I putting the buttons, how many am I putting on, then work out where to put the buttonholes. But yeah, nearly done. Super excited. Still smells really sheepy. So this yarn is from the Uppspunni mini mill. This is the first mini mill in Iceland, and it's so lovely. Anyway, and it still smells really good, and it just feels so nice, and I can't wait to block it. I made my partner a pair of socks from the sock wool, and they said to me, you know what, I put them on and they were like itchy for 5 minutes, and I thought, oh no, this is not going to be any good. But now they are so silky soft. They've put them in the washing machine a few times, and just the wearing of them, and I've never felt anything like it. So I can't wait to finish my pair of those. One, they're still in Iceland, one's done. But I have also been started some socks. I have to say, well, no. Everybody goes through like a journey as a knitter, right? In terms of learning and learning different things and different directions of, I don't know, what your interests are. Anyway, so I really have come to the conclusion that merino as a sock yarn is totally bonkers. Like it's actually as a wool, it's quite a fragile wool, I think. And then we add nylon to it to make it strong enough for socks. And when there's just like so many great breeds of sheep fleeces that are really good for socks just on their own. So I'm never buying merino nylon yarn again for making socks. But I do have a bit in my stash from pre-revelation about this. So, and I'm not someone who just goes, oh, I'm just going to get rid of it all, and you know, like it's still going to get used. So, I cast on a pair of socks with this. It's lovely too, right? I mean, it's nice yarn. I just think it's a waste to put it on your feet. Anyway, but this was my first cuff. This is mostly fallen out now, but with this little teal stripe here. But you know, every time I pick it up, I'd just go, oh, it's not really doing it for me. These colours, I don't think they're that well matched. I'm trying to be committed to only knit things you're really loving. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do one of those surgery things where you amputate a piece, like you're knitting and then you reattach something else. I don't think I've done that before. So anyway, I pulled that off, put a needle in through here. I knitted a new cuff, and then I went in and what's it called? Grafted. I used that grafting stitch all the way around. It's not perfect. Now it looks like I've got a row of twisted stitches, but it's great. It's totally workable, and I'm going to keep going with that. But it has made me realise, because I didn't enjoy it. I didn't find it an enjoyable activity, and I think I've just saved myself from ever doing this to a sweater. Like if I get to the ribbing and I've done some of the ribbing and I realise the sweater's not long enough, I'm going to pull that ribbing out. I'm not going to be doing sweater surgery. So that was a good learning. I have also finished, but I've finished, but I haven't finished. These beautiful little mittens. This is with Icelandic cashmere goat yarn, which is like you've just never felt anything like this. Also from Uppspunni. This beautiful little mitt. And this mitten design is from the owner there, Hulta. You can buy it, the pattern on her website. So lovely. Can you buy the yarn on the website? I don't know, have a look. But if you can't see it there, you can email and ask. But I've made the bind-offs a little too tight. Classic rookie error. Anyway, so I have to pull these out. Probably not the whole way. I could pull it just like half, maybe even quarter, and then just loosen it all up from there. You know, it's one of those little jobs where you're just like, oh, well, I kind of finished and I don't want to go back. Anyway, so it's a bit like that. But they're for my daughter, so I am very motivated to get it done The other thing I've made, I'm just so shocked at how much I've made in the past few weeks. There really has been, because I've developed a new habit that I don't like, which is I get a sinus infection after a long haul flight. The last 3, it's happened. I've got a strategy for the next one to try to avoid this. But anyway, it means more time on the couch other than just jet lag. So it did mean more knitting. I have finished my Icelandic Wool Week hat because I'm going to Wool Week. Did you know there's a Wool Week in Iceland? So end of September, 27th of September, 3rd of October, something like this. Anyway, I'll be there. If you're going to be there, we'll say hello. Yeah, so I finished making my little hat for this. It's pretty cute. I really like the colours. Again, most of this is from the Uppspunni, because it was designed with one of their yarns in mind, the Dis yarn, their fairy, which is like fingering weight, light fingering. Except this dark mustard is actually Jamison's of Shetland. I just thought it was such a great match with this gold, or whatever they are. Anyway, pretty happy with that. That's what I've been making. Very prolific these past few weeks. After what feels like not a lot of knitting production, because I've been doing all kinds of other things, of course. Yeah, so that's it for this week. I'm not home for very long. I'm here for like another 2 weeks, so there's probably another 1 to 2 videos before I go, and then I've got a week in transit. So it might be a bit erratic with videos, but anyway, hopefully there'll be a video from Wool Week. It'll be exciting. Yeah. Oh no, there was something else I was let me just check my notes. Oh yeah. I guess this is the thing I was thinking with this. Yeah, I mentioned the yarn. I didn't mention the pattern. So the colourwork pattern is the Birki, which is an older Icelandic Lopapeysa yoke design, and it's a kid's sweater pattern. It's on the Lopi website, I think, and you can get it for free because it doesn't meet their current sort of publishing standard. It was pretty light on the details. And if you want to make it an adult version, you got to work that out for yourself. Lots of people have. You'll find on Ravelry, lots of people have made adult sweaters and cardigans of this. And so they use sort of the numbers from an adult size yoke, continuous sort of yoke pattern. And so I did that as well. So I used the numbers from a Lopapeysa called Fold by Helga Thoroddsen. And yeah, the numbers were good, the pattern was great. I messed some things up, that's why it was like massively too big. But so this has been a bit, and because I was also, the fold thing is a sweater, not a cardigan. So, because all my numbers ended up being wrong because, well no, the arms were fine, the sleeves. But other things like the neck and the bottom cuff, it was all out, and I didn't even bother looking at. Well, no, that's the other thing. It was a sweater pattern, not a cardigan pattern, so I had no guide for numbers of stitches to pick up on the button band other than just to kind of work it out myself based on the ratios, right? So it's been a bit of a Frankenstein in terms of patterns and gauge and knowing what needles to use. But the really cool thing I've noticed in the past week with what I've been doing with this is the way in which sort of my experience as a knitter, which is actually quite brief really, but it's sort of coming to bear in terms of making some pretty good guesses about how to proceed at different points, or knowing where to go find that information, or who might have published something about this. And also made me really grateful to knitting content creators, that I've just learnt so much from them. And I'm particularly thinking about Andrea Mulray's YouTube channel. Yeah, I've learnt so much from that. And even I've learnt, even if it's not a thing that I've learned exactly how to do, it's made me realise, oh, this is a thing that I could go and find out more about and learn how to do that better. Or learn different perspectives, because every knitter says, you know, lots of people have different ideas about pick-up ratios for button bands, right? Yeah. Anyway, if you've got a favourite YouTube channel where you learn lots about knitting, I would love to hear about it. I do like watching them. Yeah, that was the other thing I just wanted to say was like, yay, knitting content creators, thanks so much. It's really awesome. So many people learn how to knit from scratch, but also learn how to really improve their knitting, improve their confidence. I am one of those who's benefited, and just, yeah, feeling very grateful. And this cardigan, I feel like it embodies that learning journey, because I've had to go sort of off-piste. I haven't just been able to just exactly follow a pattern. So, you know, I got to see some of my own learning by doing that. That was good, and partly good because most of the time it worked out right. It would have been less good if I'd just been like, oh, I should not have used that size needle for the ribbing. It's a disaster, and now I've got to redo it. And I didn't have any of those, so that was good. Okay, yes, it really is the end now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.